One of the great things about travelling, you learn an awful lot of interesting facts. So why is Bolivia called Bolivia? Well, it all started with a gentleman called Simon Bolivar, who is credited with freeing all of South America from the Spanish. As soon as we got off the bus, we immediately went the first eatery that we saw for another dinner. And then we wandered down to where our apartment was. And then the good news started. We could not believe our eyes, as the apartment was totally and utterly brand new. We were the first couple to ever stay there. We spent 2 weeks in Torreya, and we really enjoyed the hikes around the small town. Make sure that you are well prepared, because it's a very hot, dry environment. So don't wander too far off the trails, because getting lost is a real possibility. One thing I learned was there was more famous visitors than myself in Torreya. Back in 1908, two guys, the Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy, passed through Torreya. And about 100 miles from here was where they met their end. If you want to get away from the stresses and strains of modern day life, then this is a place that you really should consider. The following day, we decided to do the hike to the top of the waterfalls. It was rocky and slippy. Our next stop was a 4-hour journey to Tupiza. The reason we were going there was the start of the Sala de Uyuni. But before we did that, we did 2 or 3 days of walking in the Rocky Mountain area. It was quite incredible. Four days after we arrived in Tupiza, we started the Sala de Uyuni jeep tour. There was lots of problems on the road, as it is very, very rough terrain and the vehicles break down on a regular basis. You can forget the issues with the vehicles because the wildlife and the landscape that you're about to endure is unbelievable. Along with the driver, there was also an indigenous lady. She was the cook, and the food she served up was excellent. The accommodation in the middle of the Sala is listed as basic accommodation. I think they may have overstated the word basic, probably best described as barely adequate. Also, no showers for 3 days, but this did not distract in any way from the wow factor of the trip. On the 4th day, we arrived at the Sala de Uyuni Salt Lake Flats. It's an incredible sight. As far as the eye can see, it's totally flat and totally white. Our next location was Sucre. Well, I admit we were still a bit high from the Sala de Uyuni. Breakfast was at 10 a.m. and we were ready then to discover Sucre. Our first impressions of Sucre was, wow, this is a spectacular little city. It has a multitude of colonial buildings, all of them gleaming white. Also, they were graced by a mini Eiffel Tower, which was built by Alexander Gustave himself and sent over from Paris. This was a good start. Just to remind you, Bolivia got its name from Simon Bolivar. And Lorena said, I don't need Wi-Fi anymore with all these signs like this. On the Sunday, we took a trip to the town of Trabuco. As we had read, they were having Bolivia's annual cultural weekend. Tours were being run from the centre of Sucre to the event for $29. The local buses cost $2, so we travelled with the locals and the chickens. The streets were filled with dancers and music. It was a really colourful, exciting day. The centre one, that's a real telephone box. Would you believe a dinosaur for a telephone box? Almuerzo is lunch in Bolivia. In the bottom right hand corner, that's the soup, and it always has a chicken's claw. Another great thing about Sucre is you'll never starve. There's food on every street corner. And talking of corners, in the bottom right hand corner you'll see one of my favourites, empanadas. A man cannot live without empanadas. So Cochabamba were claiming that theirs was the biggest statue of Christ in the world, even taller than the one in Rio de Janeiro. Both statues are 33 meters tall, to coincide with the number of years that Jesus lived. We arrived at the penultimate location of our visit to Bolivia, the capital, La Paz. La Paz is like all the other towns and cities we visited, and one of the things they all have is their Mirador point. That's the lookout point. The La Paz one was named Kili Kili, and I can only guess this is a very apt name, relates to the unbelievable degree of the slope one must climb to reach the summit. Kili Kili, very appropriate. Now La Paz is a very busy, crowded city, and only a couple of days is all you need. However, add at least one day and possibly two to visit the Valley of the Moons. It's impossible in words to describe the Valley of the Moon. Check out the photographs below and you'll see what I mean. We decided to visit the small town of Corioco. We got onto a minibus with 5 other passengers and were moving along nicely. Then we were stopped and told the road ahead was blocked and we needed to take the old road. We should have realised it was Friday the 13th. Your eyes are not deceiving you. This is the road that we travelled on. I had read previously there was about 200 accidents every year which caused 250 deaths. I made a point of not mentioning that to Lorena now that we were heading in that direction. About an hour into the journey, our little minibus scraped past another vehicle coming in the opposite direction, and the 2 drivers stopped and conversed in rapid Spanish. My second mistake of the journey was asking Lorena to translate what they meant. She said, you don't want to know. Why don't I just accept such answers? But no, I was persistent. Okay, says Lorena. They are telling our driver that it's really bad ahead and very dangerous, so be very, very careful. I guess sometimes in life there's some things it's better not to know. As we wound our way up the side of the mountain, and at one point we were driving through the clouds, there was not one single word spoken by the 7 occupants. I also noticed that our driver, despite his brown skin, his knuckles were bright, bright white. Of course, you will have figured out that if I'm writing this, we survived the journey. I'm also thinking seriously about getting t-shirts made to record our achievements. The whole adventure cost us $3.50, and at the time, if they hadn't cleared the landslide, we had that great opportunity to do it all again. Thank God they cleared the landslide. I wanted to prove to you that our heads were still spinning after our minibus ride. This slide shows you we made it to Coriaco, and as you can see, the waterfalls were wonderful. But check out that incredible butterfly in the bottom right hand corner. It was well worth the journey. The Bolivian authorities want us to leave in 4 days' time, as our 90-day visas will expire. So we boarded a bus to Peru, and the journey it was via Lake Titicaca. Now, one of the things I did not know was we had to exit the bus when we reached the lake, and the bus was placed on a barge while we, the passengers, were placed in a very small boat. So this is our last day in Bolivia. 3 months ago, all I knew about Bolivia was it was the poorest country in South America. Upon our departure now, I must conclude that it may be economically poor, but is probably one of the richest countries in the world in natural scenery. Every day of our 90 days have been filled with views which have made many wows exit our mouths. I have to say, I'm pretty confident that we will be back to Bolivia in the not too distant future. It is an incredible country. Thank you for your time, and we hope with these slides you've enjoyed learning about Bolivia. It truly is a wonderful country. The end. We really hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as we have enjoyed the last 14 years of travelling the world. Travelling, the only way to live. That statement does not apply on the bus to Coriaco.